top of the box melted, and a glob of molten or melted silver fell down onto it, burning all the way through it, creating a set of 8 burns, and we see 4 of them here. So these are burns and patches and scorch marks from the fire. So the image lies in between those parallel lines, which again is nothing more than burns and patches and scorch marks. And during the fire it was doused with water, and so we have a pattern of water stains. There's one over the knees here, and there's various other armor here and here, and just so you have an understanding of everything that you're looking at. And right next to this patch here is a side wound with blood flowing down from it. Now what's interesting, anytime you look at a shroud in a Google or a book or a magazine, you always see the face image, but what you almost never see is the fact that this is a full front and back image of about a 5'10" crucified man. And here we see scrapes and blood flows all around the back of the head from an apparent crown of thorns. We see scourge marks crisscrossing the back in 2 directions, from the base of the neck all the way down to the ankles. We see the blood across the small of the back here from that side wound. We see the back of the left leg with the bottom of the left foot planted firmly against the cloth, with apparently 2 exit wounds for 2 nails, blood flowing off from this upper wound. We see the back of the right leg somewhat elevated above the left leg, with the bottom of the right heel as if one foot was placed upon the other. So now we have an understanding as to why so many people have been so intrigued over this cloth. Could it be the image of Jesus? You know, if you're going to ask that question, you're going to have to look at Scripture. So then, what does the Scripture say? This is from John chapter 20, verses 1 through 9. Early Sunday morning, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and found that the stone had been rolled aside from the entrance. She ran and found Simon Peter and me and said, "They have taken the Lord's body out of the tomb, and I don't know where they've put him." And so Mary doesn't go inside that tomb, but she peeks in, sees that the body's gone, runs to find the apostles, and says, "Someone has taken the Lord's body out of the tomb." Now this verse goes on and says, we, meaning Peter and John, we ran to the tomb to see. I outran Peter and got there first and stooped and looked in and saw the linen clothes lying there, but I didn't go in. Then Simon Peter arrived and went on inside. He also noticed the clothes lying there, and then I went in too and saw and believed. And believed what? Well, believed that he had risen, or at least he believed that something extraordinary had occurred. So it begs the question then, that what did Peter and John see that Mary apparently didn't see? Well, it was something specifically related to the burial cloth. So what did he see? Now, it's interesting that the Scripture tells us a lot, but it doesn't tell us everything. And one of the things that's not written in Scripture is any reference to Jesus leaving an image on his burial shroud. So that's kind of a problem. So now we have to ask this question. How far back in time does the idea or the concept of Jesus leaving an image on his burial shroud, how far back in time does this go? Now this is called the Mozarabic Rite of Holy Week. It's liturgy that is brought to Spain by a group of Arab Catholics in the 6th century, and they translate John chapter 20 verse 5 this way. They say, Peter ran with John to the tomb and saw the recent imprints of the dead and risen man on the linens. Well, now that's interesting. That's not in Scripture, but it's 1,500 years old. Does it go all the way back to 1st century? I don't know. All I know is that the first piece of evidence that Jesus had risen from the dead is specifically related to the burial shroud. Now, the shroud has been on public exhibition in the 20th century only 5 times. The exhibition was held in 1978. About 3.5 million people came to see it, and they would, you could come in, you could come up close here and view it in back of bulletproof glass, but you could only be there for a couple minutes. You'd have to move along. It was at the end of the 1978 exhibition that a team of 33 American scientists had permission to study it. Unprecedented. They would be with this cloth for 5 days and nights, 120 hours, round the clock, and the results of their work over the next 4 years were published in 24 different peer-reviewed journal articles. And they perform chemical analysis, blood analysis, image analysis, textile analysis. And so what's your takeaway? They collected a lot of data. Now, the Shroud sets up this very important either-or proposition. And that's this. Either the Shroud of Turin is the authentic burial shroud of Jesus, or it's not. And if it's not, then what is it? If it's not authentic, then it must be the work of an artist. It must be the work of human effort at somehow, some way. And so there must be some trace of paint, ink, dye, pigmentation, stain. There must be some discernible process by which this alleged artist used. I mean, come on. You have all this gear over there, 10 tons of gear. You know, you have your 5 days and nights, 120 hours. It can't possibly be that hard to figure out whether something's the work of an artist or not. But apparently it is. Now, here's the official conclusion of the Shroud project, rendered in 1981. Says this: we can conclude for now that the Shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist. The blood stains are composed of hemoglobin and give a positive test for serum albumin. Well, the plot certainly thickens now, and so now we have to, so if you were going to do your own research, I suggest you start here with the Shroud as an ancient textile. Now remember, the Shroud was in a fire in 1532. You had all those big burns in it, and as a result of that, the cloth was severely weakened, so therefore they had to attach it to another cloth called a backing cloth. And here we see where's my mouse? There it is. You see the backing cloth right here, this much brighter cloth. And notice how it's a standard 1-to-1 pattern weave. But now here we see it, the Shroud is stitched to the backing cloth. And here the Shroud is up here. But notice it's a very distinctive 3-to-1 herringbone pattern weave, doable in the 1st century using 1st century loom technology, but very expensive to do, and therefore very rare.